Welcome, happy weekend, and thank you so much for clicking on my video. Today, we are going to be doing some technical analysis. We're going to be getting into the SPY and the Qs, looking at some price action things as well, going over volatility, but also getting into some of those stocks that we like to look at, some like Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, Meta, maybe even a few more after that. So we're going to get into a lot of things, but I think in this area, a lot of people are wanting something to happen, but not paying attention to the multiple things that can happen at this point. And we did set up something that we were watching for last weekend. And so let's show you that small clip because I think a lot of people were ignoring that because they just want this market to tumble. And now we have finally hit the point where it has happened. A lot of people who have been convinced for a long time that there could be a daily pullback now are starting to give up hope. They are now starting to give up hope. And what do I always say about that? Right when you think this market refuses to turn down and the last person becomes bullish, that's where there's a lot of risk on the table. So let's get into it. Now, from the daily time frame, we see that we have really risen this floor. So this zone right here, if we're going to go through some kind of brief daily pullback, we might even want to move that up just a little bit into this type of area where we could react between these two zones as far as price action goes. But you can see that the elevated MACD here, you can see that there is a slight divergence there on your RSI telling you there is most likely a what? A 2-hour divergence. And if you go into the 2-hour chart, you're going to see that there is a 2-hour divergence now on the SPY. And this is something that we mentioned last week. Look for the SPY to make some kind of shape like this. We're going to show you that clip real quick just so you're aware that we were talking about this last week. As far as regular trading hours goes, we would really be saying in this type of scenario, the 2-hour pulls back, the 2-hour continues the move, the 2-hour curls down. And this is a very likely thing, right? The market continues to be irrational. That's what this is. There you see it last weekend. Yes, we drew it a little bit more dramatic, right? But it wasn't as dramatic. And now you have set up and now you have confirmed. And this was a suggestion that we put out there because we did not see the signals in regular trading hours. And we were also aware how volatility could make that new low. And if that new low was there, hey, we were very likely to make a new high. So this was able to shape up here. This is a 2-hour divergence that likes to turn down daily charts. So this is where the market can really tumble if it's not very careful in these type of areas, right? If you start to lose critical levels, if you start to see crazy things below the weekly expected move, that can be a big problem. But a lot of people are convinced it can't fall down. And this is the exact shape that we really were mentioning first off. And we were like, this is a very likely thing to happen because I like my signals to show up in regular trading hours. So as of right now, I am in some volatility plays. And then I might have to manage those plays. We'll talk about that as well. You can see that your weekly expected move, 633.09 to the upside, 614.18 to the downside. This is your 68% zone. 32% of the time, we will close outside of those levels. But for now, we are just shaping up to this going into the week. So take that and put that on your charts and take that into consideration that we are just starting the week off. If we get outside of these, we have a 68% chance to close back in them by Friday. If we get outside in either direction, we have that chance. Something here that I really wanted to pay attention to. The first thing I wanted to mention was how it can be irrational. We know that this is a 2-hour divergence that shows up when we do see that weakness in momentum. It is there. Something that I wanted to bring up here, though, is how the market can actually be irrational. This little move right here really isn't that irrational, right? This is actually something that happens a lot of the time. But now, if we're able to curl down, hit a weekly expected move, and then save ourselves, we see how the market would want to continue higher. So really, this would be a similar, almost like the bullish scenario. It's between that or just pop off squeeze like we have done multiple different times. So we'll be watching this, but as of right now, going into Monday, it says, hey, we could be seeing a daily pullback very early on begin this week. Even if we want to leak that out into something like OpX, I would really want to be aware of this. After we got the Monday and Tuesday price action, we told you guys, hey, let's be aware how this could continue into expiration, but there is still some heavy risk for Friday if we set up a 2-hour divergence, and that is there, so I wanted you guys just to see that. Now, as it stands, your daily expected move 627.16 to the upside and 620.08 to the downside. So, if this is going to fail, what would happen here? Or if it wants to create some kind of trap early on Monday or throughout Monday, well, then the 30-minute will be able to curl up into positive territory. If the 30-minute curls up into positive territory, that will be my management for the trade. That means we might have the chance to do something irrational, and maybe showing that pathway higher and then giving almost a cup and handle type look is actually what wants to happen here. So we have to see critical levels broken in order to really see downside, and then we just don't want to see that irrational bullishness come in. So if the 30-minute is able to curl up, you are most likely going to see a tag of something like 627.16, maybe even on Monday. But if we're able to break down with that 2-hour signal, the bearish signal is on the 2-hour, the 30-minute is still in a good spot, but not confirmed up on the MACD. So now you're kind of aware of some things here, but a very, very likely scenario to take place here is we are going to react down to the weekly expected move, maybe even cut that out for a moment, get some kind of bounce, and then be able to reject down towards the end of the week. And that is where we will fully be in that negative trend and really starting that daily pullback. Something I would look out for early on in the week is a daily confirmation, right? A daily confirmation could be a good thing, right? We do have OPEX, we do have expiration, and the VIX is overall at lower levels, which means we might want to reprice the VIX higher. That does not necessarily add up to good things for the SPY, but we're always aware of how it can be irrational. It is nice that the signal has popped up. Now we would like to see that daily confirmation. Then we can see that 614.18 maybe tag where you are very likely to bounce from. We were looking at the Qs and at the SPX 500. We were looking at the Qs and the SPX 500. We were saying they have divergence. So you wanted to be aware of the risk early on last week. But once you see those confirmations to the upside, you go, oh, okay, we're going to potentially either do something crazy or make the 2-hour divergence on the SPY in regular hours. And that's exactly what happened. And it's as simple as that. Really, really simple as that. And now you're actually starting to create a triple divergence, which is very, very strong here. Good confirmations for the Qs here to actually see a daily pullback to go down into one of these zones. And if you don't have monthly expected moves, okay, get the yellow lines on your chart. This is your 68% zone for the month. If we're going to end up somewhere very, very quickly by the end of the month, we could head all the way down to 524.74, and I'd be watching that level. And we will update the monthly expected moves for August if we don't make it there. And then we'll have a good level to pay attention to if we're going up or down. That's right, going up or down. Now, you might think that you have a good confirmation. And yes, some people do just read into the MACD. They say, hey, we have divergence on the MACD. That looks like a reversal signal. I have one reason to take the trade, or multiple reasons at this point to take the trade for some kind of volatility to come in, for some kind of sell-off. And this is the truth of it. A lot of people don't believe the market can fall right as they're making signals that say, hey, I can fall. And that's something that actually happens a lot towards these potential trend tops. I don't think this is some kind of market top and people are saying, oh, this is going to be horrible and we're going to crash down for the next 3 years from this level. It is very, very likely that the daily pullback will continue the move in some way, right? This is just mainly the actual daily retracement, the daily pullback for the next move higher. That is my overall opinion. If we go into that 2-hour chart, once again, you are seeing triple divergence with the rejection and a good confirmation at the end of the day. So it is one that you want to take with a slight grain of salt. So we want to look for our weekly expected moves to talk about some bullish and bearish scenarios. 564.14 to the upside, and we have 544.26 to the downside for the Qs. This means if the market wants to be irrational, well, it might come down to that weekly expected move and be able to curl up into positive territory with some kind of squeeze to break through and go higher, to pull back and head to the upside again, giving you the left head and the right shoulder to actually remain bullish, right? We want to see how the market can keep going higher. But if it wants to break down with this 2-hour chart, you could cut through that weekly expected move, curl to the upside, and then roll back down, which would give you the head and shoulders in the opposite direction. And this is something that we really want to be watching out for. And I would think that this is a way more probable situation to happen as far as it goes. Now, I will take that into consideration that we have expiration and OPEX, but at this moment, that is what I am paying attention to. What if that goes wrong? Well, then that's where we'll talk about daily expected move. What if it extends a little bit with time because we aren't at that exact expiration or OPEX just yet for July? We could see 557.86 for our daily expected move for Monday and 550.54. Something that we want to watch for is the management of the trade. If I was in this, which I am at this moment in the volatility side of it, we can see that the 30-minute is still close to the center line. So if this move wanted to continue, and this is just some sideways price action to see a big move to the upside, well, we'd be paying attention to that upside move, seeing if the 30-minute confirms up into positive territory, saying, hey, yes, I want to go to something like 557.86 on Monday. So that is the management for the trade. If the MACD is able to curl up into positive territory, that is what I am overall paying attention to. So now we kind of know, okay, if the 30-minute goes up, we can keep doing irrational things. Maybe we set up another little point of divergence or something like that. So I would be watching for it. But as of right now, I am much more leaning towards some kind of 2-hour move to the downside that then shows us, are we going to do something crazy again, or are we going to break down over time and start that negative trend with a nice little Harry Potter to the downside? The VIX down here, we were talking about this as more a higher low, just barely a higher low, because you didn't necessarily get good moves down here, good closing bars down here to say it is a divergence. Now, we did pop up, that confirmed down, and it never confirmed back up, right? We were aware, hey, if this starts to lose that low, look for that further squeezing. But notice that the SPY did not necessarily burst to the upside while volatility bursted down. So this could be, something that's kind of people giving up, right? The people who think, oh, volatility is going to come in here. It seems like a lot of people a month out are not necessarily saying volatility can come in. So we look in the near price action and we go, okay, if that can curl up, well, we might have that point of divergence. And if you pulled up a 4-hour chart, you're going to plain and simple see the 4-hour divergence, and the daily divergence is overall holding on both the MACD and the RSI. And this is something we made Patreon pretty damn aware of. We were talking about how, hey, if you do curl down like this, we need to see if these things are violated on the RSI. That did not happen. We need to see if it's violated on the MACD. That did not happen. So this says that there is some additional risk going into Monday, and I would be very, very aware of that. The volatility is overall suggesting that people are pretty damn bullish over the next month, and now they're kind of unaware of the risk in front of them. So we're really watching this guy as it goes forward, because it looks like we do have some reversal signals from volatility. And what things in the market can we pay attention to that could tell us, like, hey, is the game changing a little bit? Well, I wanted you to look at the 10-year yield and see, as we've been going up, the 10-year yield has been going down. We went to that dotted line exactly where we wanted to. And this is where I was kind of making fun of people on Twitter for right at this low, right on this wick. A lot of people on Twitter posting things about the 10-year yield. And the next thing we're going to talk about, the dollar, saying the dollar is absolutely collapsing here. It can still happen. The 10-year yield is absolutely collapsing here. It can still happen, but I think it is funny that they said those things right on this day of July 1st, because that's the exact day that we actually bottomed. And I even tweeted out saying, or tweeted, I guess X posted, whatever you want to call it. I actually kind of quoted them and said, that's funny that you post this the day of the bottom. And it ended up being true. That's very, very nice. So we do see that this isn't in positive territory yet, but it looks like those yields are starting to climb. It looks like the 4-hour chart is in a pretty damn positive trend. So this would have to reject to the downside pretty aggressively in order for this to overall fail. But I mainly wanted to take away from this how the market has been going up while the 10-year yield has been going down. Now the market is holding up while the 10-year yield is going up. And this is something that we kind of look at and we say, someone might know something, or something here isn't correct, because the correlation here says, hey, 10-year yield down good, 10-year yield up bad. But now the 10-year yield is going up, and we don't see anything terrible right now except for those confirmations. So if you were paying attention, you might have seen those. I do have family in town still, and I have to get back with them today. So I appreciate you guys giving me some time here. The daily chart for the dollar. Now, this is very, very flaggy, but once again, boom, and oh, we're going actually up here. So we are confirming divergence at this point for the dollar, and the dollar actually started to slightly go up while the market was overall remaining elevated. And I think that is very, very interesting that some people were leaking into the dollar while the market was overall remaining in that bullish stance, which tells me watch out, because this could be some kind of FOMO move, and someone under the curtain could be, or behind the curtain, could be going into cash while other people are FOMOing into stocks. And then we see those confirmations last week. So I think these are some interesting things. The dollar has been breaking down, the 10-year yield has been breaking down, but recently they have started to bounce up, and the market has gone up with it as well, which means we could be in some kind of trap scenario right now. Take this with a grain of salt. We have expiration. We have OPEX this week. You can see some crazy things on those days, but paying attention to your trade, paying attention to how you can be wrong is a very good thing. And that's what we call trading like water. If you were looking at my post when I wasn't able to come on the live stream or not able to really put out any videos or anything like that, still on Patreon, we were overall suggesting watch out in your trade if you see any kind of lower high or a divergence. And right now, Apple is suggesting that this could be a lower high. Now, we want to see that low taken out. We want to see a good pullback in here. And then we want to see what happens down towards that 202 to 203 area. So this will be very, very interesting going forward. The daily chart, if it curls down, it's not necessarily in a terrible spot for Apple. So I think that this is very, very interesting. If that 2 hour is not going to be able to take out these levels, and look at the nice little thing going on here, well, if you're not able to do that, well, then the 30-minute is going to curl up into positive territory. You would say management for the trade is there, and we watch out for divergences because we are very, very close to a top, and that's just how it is. So Apple going to be very interesting this week. Very interesting look. Very, I think that Apple would be still the more difficult one, and I think Apple has been pretty difficult in 2025, except for some key moments. Tesla, we see the 30-minute chart is going up and up and up, able to take back that 5. And if it's able to curl down, well, it's still in this zone, still in those sellers. So we want to watch for if the 30-minute curls down and is able to bounce off of that 5-day moving average to curl up into positive territory on the MACD. We see that the 2-hour chart here is still overall negative. So if we wanted to make some kind of higher low here, I think that's what you would want to do, because overall, if you don't make a higher low for something like Tesla, well, you can start to see this thing break down and see how we could reject over time, and that wouldn't be a good thing. Now, Tesla looks like it's setting up like it wants to kind of ping in this area, right? We said it was ping-ponging between two zones, and it started to ping-pong between two zones. So this is very, very nice. We said that all the way back here, and we were talking about how it would like to behave over the next couple of weeks, or months, actually. So this is very, very interesting to me. We'll look for daily confirmations. That would be by the center line, and that would suggest that positivity can come. But as of right now, the 2-hour chart is still close to the center line, meaning you have to watch for any kind of break of this level and see if we make new lows. We can always catch ourselves with some kind of divergence. That's actually what ended up happening right here. So Tesla is posturing, which I think is very interesting during the time where the SPY is showing these terrible signals. During the time where the Qs are showing these terrible signals, we just looked at the difference in the 10-year yield of the dollar. Those things suggesting the game is changing and this could be a FOMO move, while also Apple is saying, I'm kind of in a weird spot. So we have some interesting looks for these first two that we're looking at that are saying, hey, I kind of want to go up from here, but you have to be aware of how those things overall can fail. Because when you look over at the next stock, something like Amazon, yes, we made one more euphoric move. Yes, we did for Amazon. We saw one more euphoric move to create a triple divergence here on your MACD. And if you blow up this RSI, you're going to see triple divergence for the RSI. We will still pay attention to how it can be irrational. But if we get a good confirmation here for Amazon, that can be a bad thing. That means if this MACD is able to confirm down, it is highly suggesting that we are going to get a daily pullback. How would that like to overall behave? Well, we might see Amazon go down to this level, react to the upside, and pull back even deeper down to something like 200 before it's able to figure its stuff out, which means because we have held the market up for so long, we might be paying attention to a bottom later on towards August. So we will be watching for that. I would love a bottom for my birthday month, but it is interesting to me that Apple has a kind of a lower high, but still looks like it doesn't need to crash. But if the market is telling you anything here, it is saying risk is very, very heightened. You have confirmations going on into early this week, and all we have to worry about is expiration and OPEX and the market doing something irrational. If the Amazon is able to curl down here, you will notice that it does have daily divergence, which means that Amazon itself does have a chance to go all the way down to even potentially 190, and that would potentially take all the way into August expiration. That would potentially, even if we really want to leak out some time, we could go all the way into September, where we are very, very likely to see a rate cut. Nvidia got rid of the daily divergence, never confirmed anything here, and really wiped it out on the RSI right away. So you really shouldn't have been paying too much attention to it. But in the near price action, you're starting to see this on your RSI, which means we can go into a 2-hour chart. If you wanted some levels for the daily pullback, we are paying attention to right here towards 143.35. We are also paying attention to a level of 133. And I am heavily leaning towards this 133 level. And I think we might take our time to get there. But as this is up, up, up and away, and we keep doing the crazy thing to the upside, you always want to look out for the big retracement. So another level to watch for is 115, even though I think it is very low probability to get there. As we pull up the 2-hour chart, you're going to see that you can just look at a daily chart and see that RSI and see, hey, there is very likely a 2-hour divergence. Look at that. There is 2-hour divergence right here for the Nvidia. I don't know why I said the Nvidia, but we do not necessarily have a good confirmation. You do not see a closing bar below the 9. You do not see a confirmation on your MACD with a red bar, and you only have the RSI at this point suggesting that the momentum here has confirmed as weak. And so we will be watching this because it looks like Nvidia is shaping up to maybe even some kind of top going into this weekend. Risk is going to be very heightened for Monday, so we'll want to watch out for that. And real quick with Nvidia, how you would want to pay attention, how would this break down? Well, you'd want to be a part of Patreon because you'll get a weekly expected move. And if you do get those weekly expected moves and that say tears you down to these type of levels and you bounce up, hey, you'll find that level you're very, very likely to bounce from. If we're going to confirm down on a 2-hour, you're very likely to go to the bottom side weekly expected move for Nvidia. How would this like to break down with the price action here? You might even see this break down. Get that curl up to go reach into those sellers and curl back down to get down into something like 144 to start things off, giving you the head and shoulders to break down over time, giving you that nice Harry Potter to the downside. So we'll be watching out for that. And at this point, we really want to be paying attention to something like this. If this is going to behave irrationally, right? I'm not talking about it on every single chart, but if we are going to see things just do something crazy and wipe out 2-hour divergence once again, like we have multiple times, well, what ends up happening is you get down by that center line, you curl up into positive territory. Look how we got down to the center line and curl up into positive territory. That is on the table. If we're able to remain up a little bit better, come into this area and curl up into positive territory, we still can remain positive. But as of right now, this is a reversal signal, so we will be watching out for weakness for AMD as well, because this is something that we were suggesting for a while now was AMD is going to make a 2-hour divergence. AMD is going to confirm that, make a new low, and be able to break down over time. So where am I paying attention to on the daily chart for AMD? I am watching this level of about 115, which is kind of ironic because Nvidia, if it dramatically dropped, which is very low percentage chance at this point, we'll have to see how the market shapes up over the next few weeks. But as of right now, you would be paying attention to like 114 for AMD. So very, very funny there. And you have a 2-hour divergence telling you it's possible. The 30-minute on a lot of these charts is showing little 30-minute divergences, just so you're aware. So even if the 30-minute confirms, right, look for the 30-minute to confirm. Then the 2-hour might confirm after that. Then we might lose this low. And right when everyone thinks we're crashing, we get one of those dead cat bounces. They think the market's coming back because it's been irrational for a long time. And then we fall one more time. So we'll be watching for that and updating you throughout the week about these type of levels. One that is giving a different look and is Meta. It really is. And Meta, I still think, has the opportunity to come down to that 640 level at this point. So I am watching for that. I can see how it can remain better, right? I am someone who just reacts. I trade like water, meaning I don't think anything in the market is 100%. I always leave a 1% guy on my shoulder to tell me, hey, how could you be wrong here? And that has saved me many, many times. And I hope that you are making a plan for your trade, but also a plan for if it goes wrong and not giving, if you're wrong, admitting that, humbling yourself and saying, hey, I was wrong here and I can manage the trade. And hopefully that trade has at least come down enough that you can either make money off it and you can manage the trade and get back in if something curls up. But you do have a reversal signal here, not in the form of a divergence, but you do have confirmations from the MACD on your daily chart saying there is daily divergence here. There is daily divergence that is kind of flat on the RSI, which means we could go through something a little bit rough for Meta. So if Meta's saying anything, it says we could sell off for a little period of time here. If it's a flash crash type of move, we'll be watching for it. You most likely will set up 2-hour divergence, so be patient. If we look at the 2-hour chart, why am I discussing the daily being able to curl down? Well, because as of right now, we have confirmations that say Meta is making a lower high at this point and going to come down into these levels. How would it want to break down over time? Well, the bearish scenario would be we would see a big reaction down to 680, we would bounce up, and then we would see some kind of head and shoulders to the downside. Now, if we're going to do, if all this is going to be right, the plan for if it goes wrong, if the 2-hour curls up into positive territory, is very likely that we are, if we take out this high, it is very likely that we are going to raise the floor here and continue for a bit of time, maybe even into the end of the month. This is why multiple weeks ago we were suggesting, and we drew these things out and said, watch for the market because it can be irrational all the way up into July 31st. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that, or a lot of people have been saying, hey, oh, I have a reversal signal, now has to be the time. You always look for if you can be wrong. That 1% guy will save you more times than not. You do have a lower high confirmed for Meta making the new low. You see that it's trying to go negative at this point. This is very, very nice, and it's rejecting right from 736.25, which is a great level to watch as of right now. Meta looks like it has a reversal signal that says, I want the daily to turn down. And since the daily does have forms of divergence, that can be pretty rigorous. So we might be looking for a decent size retracement here for Meta, and it could take some time, is overall what Meta is saying. So let's pay attention into August, but maybe even pay attention to September as well. If you see this RSI for Microsoft, you are noticing that we don't necessarily have the divergence anymore. We kind of wipe those points out. But if you zoom out on this, you see how big it has gone up and how much it has gone up, and how it would really like to go test something like 460, or if it really wants to get bad, all the way to 429. I am open to that. I'm open to the market stopping whenever the market wants to stop, right? I overall react when I see my reasons for a trade. I don't say, hey, it has to go down to 460. I don't say it has to go down to 430. It could literally go down to 480, 490, have a 2-hour divergence, and turn to the upside, and I'll be reacting. That's how I like to do things, but look how big this is. And if you look at your RSI, though, on for the daily chart, you're actually noticing that little divergence there. So something we can watch for early on in the week is, do we see a 2-hour confirmation here, right? And is this 2-hour very likely to cross down? As of this moment, you do not have a good 2-hour confirmation for the MACD. You do not have it for the RSI, and you do not have it for the price action, right? The actual chart. You're not confirmed below the 9-day moving, or the 9 on the 2-hour. And so we're really watching this, but we do notice the divergence. So right when you give up, right when you think that this market can't turn down, it shows a reversal signal, and it's the one time you ignore it that it ends up being the time it turns down. So very, very interesting. Does the 2-hour chart have a high likelihood to turn down? Well, let's look at the 30-minute chart. I like to use smaller time frames to see weakness if a bigger time frame can cross. And I noticed that over time, with my time in market, the 30-minute shows me some weakness, and then the 2-hour confirms. And when the 2-hour has it's all at the same time. This stuff really starts to pile on, and that's overall how I like to try to call some kind of top in this market. So we pay attention to how we can be wrong every single time. If the 30-minute or 2 hours able to curl up into positive territory, it would most likely be wrong. But now we do notice that we have this high, we have a potential lower high, we have good confirmations for that as of right now towards the very end of the day on Friday. So now we're just watching, do we start to break down and lose that 5 over time? How would we like to break down overall? We would like to see a big move down past something like 490. You would like to really take out these levels, then see that head and shoulders pop up with your left head and right shoulder for Microsoft. It is very, very likely that we are seeing that it has finally happened, where people just give up and they say, this market's irrational. I give up. I'm buying everything. And that is a lot of the time the moment during big squeezes when it starts to tear down. So watch out. Now, we were suggesting Google still had the opportunity to go 185, something like 185 to 186. I don't know if that is on the table, because this daily chart is showing you a potential daily top if we confirm to the downside, meaning Google can go retest these levels or fill gaps. So this will be a very interesting time going forward. It is very likely that you are about to see people's tone change. You are going to see everyone who is saying, hey, 700, 700, 700. Oh, this market's going bullish forever. Oh, this is the golden age. And so it's just going to be easy. We buy stocks and it all goes up. If you have some resiliency and you're a good investor and you understand that time is your best asset, yeah, you can be successful with that. But if you're trying to trade this with options and you're seeing things like this and you're ignoring them, be very cautious, because you do have a daily top signal for Google. You do have the daily that says, hey, is that daily very likely to turn down? Well, we look at the 2-hour chart for that, and the 2-hour is showing the divergence here. We see that divergence on the MACD. We see the divergence on the RSI at the same time. So these things are really adding up to weakness here for Google, but is it actually going to confirm? We do not see confirmation here yet. We do not see confirmation here on the MACD yet. We do not see confirmation on the RSI yet. So no reason for the trade at this moment. And if you look at the 30-minute chart, you see that that thing is pretty dang positive at this moment. No divergence, no lower high at this point. So if Google is able to hold up for a little bit of time, we could react off that 5, see us get up towards that area, and then we'll look out for divergence towards expiration. So I would heavily be watching for Google to be able to continue the move or make a lower high at this point and give some kind of trap into expiration is how I see it. Talk about this guy who finally curled up on the daily chart, and whether you like it or not, the market is showing I want to top while AMC actually sees a 10% gap up is very interesting. I never take this into consideration too heavily. I never think like, oh, the move has to happen. I just like good signals, and the daily pullback did happen. The daily touched into our zone. The daily gave you 2 hour the 2 hour gave you 2 hour divergence as well, suggesting that that was going to turn up. And guess what? You get good news after it, right? So multiple times here, we're noticing that the signals are getting AMC and GME things very right, whether it's positive or negative. I know you might want some kind of massive squeeze with this, but you need to be paying attention to lower highs as well. We do notice that AMC was able to see a nice move after creating those divergences, and we pointed this out multiple times. And then it confirms up, and then it curls down on the 30, confirms up again, takes back the 5. This is very, very nice. This is why I said, hey guys, I literally said it in one of my videos. I am buying AMC options here. I'm going to manage the trade if it goes wrong. Okay, I managed the trade for a moment. It curls back up, right back in. That's how I like to do things. I like to really stay in control of my trading. As of right now, the 2 hour scale is dramatically up. If you want some kind of squeeze, you never want that 2 hour to curl back down. But in a regular time, you would say, hey, the 2 hour is very likely to come back down into this zone to curl back up into positive territory once more. I just think that it's interesting that as AMC starts to confirm these signals, we actually see reversal signals again from the SPY that are very, very dramatic. And at this point, you have daily divergences on a lot of stocks. So watch out for those stocks with daily divergences. As you go over to GME, you're noticing what we have drawn up here. You're noticing that it is starting to happen. So GME does not have to pop off. It is trying to go positive. It needs to make a new high and go into a positive trend here. The daily chart is dramatically pretty bad here at the moment. So if we can really try to carve this out as a higher low and just be like, all right, we're going to go to the upside, that would be a good thing. But you are still at risk not being able to see into the future, not being a magician, not even AI is able to do it. If you're giving your brain away to AI, you will notice that this head and shoulders could play out. If the 2 hour confirms down, that will be a bad thing for GME, so just be aware of it. This is just what I'm paying attention to for GME. AMC looks a million times better at this point. There are a couple other stocks that we were paying attention to. AVGO, 2 hour divergence has popped up. And guess what? My drawing, it might have been off in the timing, but remember when we had that drawing up like this, where it starts to confirm back down, and it actually is happening now. So it took a little bit more time than I actually thought it would, but that likes to happen a lot of the time in the market. Nice little flagging here to take your time, and then you burst to the upside. So we have seen what we drew up like 3 weeks ago for AVGO actually take place here. So be aware that you have a ton of 2 hour divergence that is suggesting, oh my goodness, this is weak on your RSI. Oh my goodness, this is weak on your MACD. And you do have good confirmations for that. You have a lot of other things that have confirmed as well. So you have heightened risk going into Monday. Another one that we pointed out earlier on that actually played out the way we expected was JP Morgan. JP Morgan, we were suggesting with the 30-minute triple divergence here that it could break down and then curl to the upside to actually break down one more time. So we will be watching for, does the 30-minute, 2 hour, does it get up to these type of levels? Does the 2 hour confirm back down into negative territory? JP Morgan, this is a topping signal. You have a good daily confirmation. You do not have daily divergence. So this is very likely a daily pullback down into something like 263.52. I just wanted to show off a bunch of charts. The reason I wanted to show off a bunch of charts is so you can take them into consideration. I would even go through them again if I were you, and I would say, okay, how could this stock break down and how could I be wrong? Because at this moment, we actually were able to do it. We always said, if you are able to make them, this is why I use regular trading hours. If you are able to make the signal on the 2 hour chart, yes, we drew it a little bit more dramatically. We're never going to get it 100,000% right, but we are aware of how weakness forms. Weakness has formed, weakness has confirmed. So what are you going to do next? And that is what you have to decide. You are someone who can trade totally different than me. We can think about money differently, but paying attention to how the market moves, and that's overall what we're trying to do on this channel, is show you how I like to do things, and then maybe you can utilize it for yourself in some way with a second opinion here. Pay attention to your weekly expected moves. Pay attention to if irrational things happen, and we will mention it in our shows, in our videos. If we are able to see some kind of irrational thing take place, we will make you aware of that. You have 2-hour divergence for the SPY in the regular trading hours. You have triple divergence from the Qs. You have the VIX trying to pop off right now. You have the dollar turning around. You have the 10-year yield turning around. And all you have to get through is VIXpiration and OPX. And if you're able to get through those, hey, we can keep squeezing to the upside if we see things that are good. But right now, everything is looking pretty bad, in my opinion. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I just hope you were able to take something away from this. I hope that this was helpful to you in some way, even to just to give you some levels. If you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine. But here's your levels for the week. I hope they are able to help you. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your Sunday and you're able to spend some time with family today. All right, guys, peace out.